Hi, my name's Tom Morgan. I am one of the digital transformation leaders at Accenture Interactive. And I want to talk today a little bit around how we design, build and deliver products at unprecedented speed using the miracle of MACH technologies. And I want to approach this not from the perspective of someone who always does this at modern organizations with really brand new shiny tech stacks, but actually someone who's worked at a lot of old organizations with legacy architecture that needs to be piecemeal replaced and strangled out until a new modern architecture is ready to take its place. And that's a really important piece to demystify, because MACH is not just about putting these things into brand new small startups with really modern platforms already ready to go. So if we can just get philosophical for a moment, the reason this stuff is important is because it plays to this tension between the creative process inside your business and how customers actually consume that, which is typically through a product. And if we say product, what we actually mean is an app, a website, an experience of some kind. And because that's typically the way that we build stuff, that can lead to this slightly incorrect assumption that there are two different teams at work. You've got creative folk over in one corner and you've got techie folk in another. And even if that is true in a number of businesses, ultimately it's product that people are actually using to consume your experience, to consume your brand, and to consume the creativity that you work on. So I think if we step back 10 years, we kind of learned a little bit about this when Apple was on stage and Steve Jobs was telling us all about the intersection between liberal arts and technology. And of course, that led us to really understand that Mozart couldn't have composed a concerto without understanding the mechanics of a piano. Ultimately, brands like Coca-Cola have been extremely successful, not just because of the iconic sound of the can Coke opening, but also because of the fact that the drink is refreshing, it is sweet, and it does drive a number of pleasure senses in the human mouth. In other words, if you're a marketeer, it's very, very, very hard to polish a turd to create a great product. And if you're a technologist, sinking your head into the code won't help. You have to lift your head out of it if you want to be involved in the creative process. In summary, the future of building products is intense collaboration between those teams. And of course, in reality, it's always been this way. It's just become more important than ever. In my previous experience, I've worked with publishing firms. And one of those firms has been around a long, long time. And if you think about the technology that publishing firm relied on in order to get its market and its voice heard hundreds of years ago, it was the printing press. Yes, you needed the journalists, the creatives, the writers, but actually it was the printing press that took that. It was the product that allowed it was like the technology, if you like, that allowed it to be delivered and enabled to market. And nowadays, of course, that is the web, that's podcasts, emails, voice, and a whole bunch of new experiences and ways to get that content out there. So that's why, for me, MACH is a really, really important advancement in the space of product building. But before we go any further, what is it? It is microservice-based. It's API first. It's cloud native. And it's headless. And ultimately, it has a number of really important benefits. The first of which is that it's faster, it's better, and it's lower cost. In my experience, using these MACH technologies has allowed us to take release cycles from months to weeks, and ultimately to days. The next part of MACH is that it helps you hire teams faster because the barrier to entry is lower. Typically because a lot of the platforms are well documented, well supported, and have a lot of answers already ready to go. That means you can typically aim at slightly more junior developers who are slightly more front-end centric. And that, of course, means that they're able to get up to speed faster. And of course, because you're lowering the barrier to entry, your teams can be more diverse as well. You're not relying on people who have 10, 15 plus years experience in the sector, but you can pull in a much wider net of people and bring that diversity to your engineering teams. Another advantage is that it lets you to choose which technologies you want to deploy and when. In the example I'm going to show, this is a classic MACH architecture with a content platform at the heart called Content Stack. Those guys I've worked with before, they're a really important component to MACH, is that headless CMS space. And that's just an example of a vendor I've used that I've got on really, really well with in terms of how their solution fits in. But the point this diagram tries to show is that all you have to really think about from an engineering and product mindset is how you create the APIs, webhooks, and JavaScript interactions that tie these various components together. You don't have to worry about the maintenance of the CMS. You don't have to worry about how the actual commerce platform works. You just have to think about the architecture. You have to make sure that the feature set is what you're looking for and your teams are looking for. That again lowers the barrier to entry, and it also creates a really scalable solution. That means if you think about how a product starts, you could even build this whole thing using basic and free tiers on those platforms. And as it grows and the user grows and the user base grows, it will scale along with it, and you can take advantage of that scalability, but you can use the same architecture throughout. So essentially, it's best-in-class technologies. It's getting code into people's hands fast. It keeps the cost down, and it motivates the team. Now, the reason this matters to me is because if you go back to that challenge that you tend to have between this perception of creative folk and techie folk, this creates a lot of problems when you're actually working on building products. Because typically you get techie folk saying, oh, well, we can't do it, or we can do it because of this reason. And you get your creative folk saying, well, this is how it needs to work, and this is the experience we're going after. And of course, some of that creative tension is positive. But a lot of the time it can actually just lead to this tension here, which is where the business say, well, we want that, and the techie folk are saying, but we're hindered, we're encumbered, we can't move it forward at the speed you'd like it to move forward at. And that's the tension that MACH really starts to break down. And you get to the point where when someone says, I have an idea, and then you can execute that idea fast and with minimal cost, you're really onto a winner. Another way to think about this is this classic visualization of the process of product build: design, prototype, deliver. You've all seen this presented to you by a number of creative agencies and consultancies. And of course, it comes in different shapes and sizes, but those tend to be the three key components. Now, in reality, what tends to happen is you get a break point between where you prototype and you deliver. When the prototype is a low-code solution that can't be improved, that can't be scaled, and needs to be thrown away, there's an architecture piece that needs to happen at discovery, and then you go into that delivery phase. And in some less mature agencies, you even have that break point between the design team, the prototyping team, and the delivery team. All these handoffs are really slow, they create rework, and ultimately that's what's stopping you build those products and executing those ideas fast. What MACH does is it just allows us to fuse these things together slightly more efficiently, so that the solution you're designing from the start is the very solution you'll end up scaling and building out. Because you're prototyping with that using real product and real code, your same people are going to then go on to the delivery and start scaling it architecturally. And this means that effectively you get a nice smooth flight path all the way from your original inception right through to the end delivery. And of course, the consequence of that is that you can drive proper transformation without the tech getting in the way. There's a few things to look out for with MACH. The first one is that you need to do the business case based on upfront cost investment for platform costs and fees, but ultimately when you account for the infrastructure reduction and the fact that your devs and your engineers and your designers are going to be working on more valuable content and more valuable product innovation, your cost reduces over time. And of course, relating to that, this is a very busy market right now. As a client, you're hugely empowered to negotiate hard, and I suggest you do, and you focus on getting the SLAs, getting the right contract terms, and getting the ultimate length of contract that's right for each component part. That is going to really help you build your business case as you move into this arena. And if you get those things right, then of course that comes with the support. So every vendor I've ever dealt with in this arena brings with solution knowledge, brings with the knowledge as how that solution can fit into other component parts of MACH architecture. So you don't find yourself lost and confused and dealing with an individual number of people who are just looking out for their own back. And lastly, of course, this is how you build momentum. But the real power comes as you strangle out the old and bring in the new. And when you end up with a really modern, flexible and scalable architecture, then your engineers are motivated, your teams are positive, and you're able to really start breaking down the barriers that happen between teams. And that, of course, is so important because, as I already explained, the future of building products is intense collaboration between your creative teams, between your tech teams, and inside your whole business. Thank you very much, and I look forward to answering any questions.